I don't know what is. The dirty four should be indicted. Now, luckily, we got one lawyer off the County Board of Supervisors. Bye-bye, Joni Gray. Have a nice life in your retirement. Hopefully nobody digs into your past and finds some felonies and misdemeanors. I'm wondering how this guy, I like to call him Dan the Man, how did he buy a $600,000 house all cash with a high school diploma and working for the district attorney's office all those years and a couple of divorces, flying down to South America quite often, and somehow he comes up with all this cash. And then he puts more cash in, so he gets a rebate, and Christine Stanley didn't investigate it. The current woman, district attorney, does not seem interested in investigating it. And on his financial disclosure form, 700 form it's called, which is public information, everybody has a right to go look at. I went and looked at Dan the Man's. Son of a gun, he had no stocks, no bonds, no cash in the bank, and he gave his home address as a DA's office. Is that not a fraudulent statement on his Form 700? Shouldn't.
Sounds like fraud.
Sounds like fraud, yes. Shouldn't he be indicted? No, he retired and is probably down in Mexico now or South America with 3 or 4 bimbos happily humping away.
Permission to arrest on site?
No, yes, permission to arrest on site.
We're
Yeah,
starting
granted.
a civil community to arrest this man.
Yes. I don't know. This district attorney's office couldn't find a stinking fish laying on their supper table right in front of their face if it was there for a week. Because this one's been there for years. It's not like I haven't mentioned it. And just go look and see if you don't see a clip called Dan the Man. And I got him at this $600,000+ house on video. And was he nervous? How did you find me? He wanted to know. How did you find me? Because I do investigations, Dan. That's how I found you.
In your face.
In your face. I'm not going to say in your face. But, you know, Dan, you promised to come on my show and explain a whole bunch of things. You didn't want to talk that day because you weren't dressed in a suit and tie. Okay, it's now been several years. Can you come on the show now and explain some questions? I got a lot of questions about where the money came from, how much you paid in divorces. Oh, and what about those allegations of wife abuse? I got a lot of questions. I got a lot of questions, Dan. Come on. I want you to come on here, sit alongside of me. I won't bite. And let me ask some questions. Or maybe a We the People grand jury should ask those questions and bring some witnesses on and indict you secretly and send out a true bill of indictment for you. Oh, I'm not trying to stir up trouble. I'm just trying to clean up Santa Barbara's dirty garbage publicly here. Anyway, I think, you know, Thomas Mesro made such a fabulous speech at this one dinner. I want to share a little bit of that with you so you can get a grasp, because most of you didn't attend the Michael Jackson trial every single day for 5 months like I did. So you have no clue how horribly fabricated and fake the evidence was, but I do. What irritates me is Fox, CNN, and all these media that got people paid big bucks didn't tell you either. The Santa Maria Times didn't report daily on what was going on. Neither did the Santa Barbara News Press. Yours truly, I did 10 shows to tell you what was going on. And it was amazing to me. I'm the only guy not getting paid to go there for 5 months. I'm the only one telling you in advance, please, Mr. District Attorney, can you show me one witness that doesn't get caught in their own lies? And I was saying, and I even said it at my church, at the time was the Vineyard Fellowship, and I said, many Sundays before the verdict, June 13th, I said, Michael's going to walk free. And the church crowd looked at me like, are you nuts? Oh yeah, there was 3 people clapping for me. One was my wife, and the other 2 were friends I'd known in the church for a long time. The rest of the church stood there like, is Wagener crazy? Has he completely gone off his gourd? All the network national television is saying, Michael's going to this prison, or he might be going to that prison. And I was saying, he's going to go home free. There's no way the jury can convict him on this kind of crappy, fabricated, false evidence for which the dirty 4, again, is Sneddon, Zonen, Auchincloss, and Nicola, should all be doing time in prison. We need an indictment. Does anybody know anybody on the current grand jury? Maybe you should bring it up. I'll come and testify. I was there. So with that, let's hear some good words from my good friend, which only became my friend after the trial because he wouldn't talk to me during the trial, Thomas Hurricane Mesereau.
First of all, thanks so much for coming, and thank you for the kind invitation, William, to speak. You know, I don't care if an organization is large or small or rich or poor. If it stands for the right principles, I'm with it.
That's right.
And anyone who is devoting any time out of their busy life to promote the reality that Michael Jackson was completely innocent of these horrific charges, and that Michael Jackson was one of the kindest, nicest, most sensitive, most giving people on the planet, I'm with you. I'm behind you. Okay? And that's what I believe this group is. You know, I'm a criminal defense lawyer. It's my profession. I really love my profession. I have a great belief that we, as criminal defense lawyers, have done more to promote freedom in this country than almost any other group I can think of. And we're often attacked, we're often vilified, we're often ridiculed. We fight very, very stiff odds most of the time, but we make people prove their cases, we protect our freedoms, and we make sure, as best we can, that innocent people go free. And I will tell you in no uncertain terms, Michael Jackson was 100% innocent of these horrible charges. He really was. Now, when I get into a case, I try to keep my objectivity. I don't necessarily believe the client or anyone else. I don't believe the prosecutors, I don't believe the police, but I don't necessarily believe the client till I find out for myself what the evidence is, who the client is, who the witnesses in the case are, for and against, and I start to gradually form my own conclusions about what I'm going to do. So when I first met Michael Jackson, I was in Florida, not far from Orlando. His brother Randy had called me. I'd known him for many years. We used to socialize once in a while. I'd never represented anyone in the Jackson family. And he called me and he said, we don't like the lawyers we have. And my brother, you know, has always been interested in meeting you. And we spoke to the late Johnny Cochran, who thinks you're the one to defend him, which was very nice of Johnny. I'll always be indebted to him.
Yes.
And I flew down and I met Michael. And he was very quiet, very shy. He said very little. Randy did most of the talking. I was being questioned in front of Michael by Randy and others so that Michael could make a decision as to whether or not I was the one he wanted to represent him. And I told everything I was asked about my background, my upbringing, my education, my career, the kinds of cases I had tried. And I left Orlando not knowing whether I'd ever hear from him again. And about 3 weeks later, Randy called and said they wanted me to be his defense attorney. And I said to Randy, I assume you've been talking to a lot of other people. He said, no. He said, when Michael heard you, he said he wanted you, which was just a very great surprise to me. But nevertheless, one thing led to another, and I became his defense attorney. It was a great honor and a great privilege, but it was also a great challenge, because as I think everyone here knows, the media was 100% against him all over the world.
Yes.
They were just absolutely having a field day trying to torture this poor soul who was bewildered and terrified, a creative genius, a sensitive humanitarian, not someone built for a criminal courtroom, let's face it. And this was a long, painful ordeal. This trial lasted almost 5 months. We were there 5 days a week. So for 5 days a week, all day, Michael had to sit there listening to people say that he was a Mafia Don type who had organized a criminal conspiracy to falsely imprison a family, to abduct children, and to commit criminal extortion. That he was a child molester of the most malicious type who took a cancer-ridden child, plied him with alcohol that could have poisoned the child to soften him up for the crime of child molestation. That he had organized other people to help him commit these kinds of crimes. That he had intentionally and maliciously and manipulatively given alcohol to underage children for his own selfish purposes. I mean, these charges were bad, okay? These charges were horrific. You know, Americans are fascinated by homicide cases, and I defend homicide cases. But American people are more repelled by child molestation charges than they are by murder charges. This is the worst kind of thing you can try and pin on any human being. And I guess what I have to tell you is that I occupied a chapter in Michael's life that was very, very dark and very, very evil in terms of what he had to go through, what people were trying to do to him in order to profit themselves. I've never seen a media onslaught in any criminal case this bad. I really haven't. I don't know if any of you remember the week the jury was deliberating. All of the cable stations were showing jail cells on TV every day where he was supposed to end up. The intent was to condition the jury and hopefully influence them to convict.
That's right.
I've never seen it in any case. If any of you have ever seen jail cells on TV every day on every major cable station while a jury is deliberating a case, tell me where it was, because I never have. Okay, never have. And the documentaries on television leading up to that trial, the reports on who the witnesses were supposed to be, the reports on the 1993 case were absolutely scandalous and disturbing and horrific. And they were designed to do one thing and one thing only, convict. Why? Not for justice, for ratings and revenue. Because the ratings and the revenue were in a conviction. One very prominent person in the music industry told me after the trial, you cost the music industry billions of dollars when you acquitted him. Because they were looking forward to having him arrested right away, taken to jail. There'd be a month or two build-up to the sentencing, which would be the biggest sentencing in the history of the world, sentencing Michael Jackson to probably 20 years in state prison. He would have been not dressed the way he normally dressed. He wouldn't have had his makeup on. He would have been living in a jail cell in isolation for months. During those months, they would have been reporting on information from the jail. Is he going to commit suicide? What is he eating? What is he reading? Who's visiting him? This was going to be a ratings bonanza if Michael Jackson were convicted. And they wanted a ratings bonanza. They were not there for justice. They were there for ratings, revenue, and big business. So they tried to spin what was good for their business. They didn't care whether it was just or not. And their goal was to report whatever they felt would help them achieve their objective. They only just needed one thing more. They needed a jury verdict of guilty. And that's what they tried their best to create. Now, William said something I think he believes that I don't totally agree with. He thinks Mr. Sneddon brought the case not caring whether he could win or not, and I don't believe that. I think Mr. Sneddon and his cohorts thought they could win, and I think they convinced themselves they had a good case. And I think the media and the prosecution reinforced each other's beliefs that there was going to be a conviction in the case. They all had separate but similar interests in a conviction. There's something in this country that likes to see people go way up and then come down and splatter. It makes for good TV. It makes for good shows. It makes for revenue. Everybody in the media wants shock value these days, reality shows. One show on a gory homicide case after another. But seeing Michael Jackson sent to prison was going to be one of the most dramatic events in world history, they thought. Now, when you get into a case like that, you have forces coming at you from every angle. You have the media trying to attack you. You have other lawyers